I'm Madelyn Blair, and this is Unlocked. Now also on the Conscious Business Network channel here on E360 TV. If you're that person who reaches for goals that challenge you to fully reach your potential, this show is for you. Because this is a show all about opening possibilities so that when you're hit with the unexpected, you have options from which to choose. You can learn more about the show on my website at madelynblair.com and at the specific page, madelynblair.com/unlockedtv, which includes replays of earlier shows. For now, this is our first appearance on the Conscious Business Network channel here on E360 TV, and I thank you for joining me today. Our topic today is beauty and photography. One day, an interviewer asked me what was so important to me that I wished I could attend to it every day. That question forced me to put my feelings into words. The question surprised me, but my answers just surprised me more. The answer was beauty. What I could attend, I actually do attend to every single day. All the whats began to tumble out of my mouth, almost as if they were happy to be let out finally. I observe how the colors of a book enhance the topic it espouses. I arrange flowers for the table. I take notice of the interaction between a mother and a child. I take time to look at the progression of a story, sometimes called the story arc. I listen for when a presenter answers someone's question in a simple yet clear and respectful manner. I was surprised as the list seemed to go on and on. A few months later, I was talking with Diana Whitney on this show, a brilliant researcher and facilitator, and she asked me, "So Madelyn, how do you define beauty?" Well, if describing what I do every day to see beauty in my life was nothing compared to the sudden insight I gained from answering Diana's question, I answered without hesitation. Beauty is what opens the heart, I said. Diana seemed excited about my answer. She agreed beauty is one that opens possibilities well beyond what is just pretty. She added that beauty is also the moment when a job is completed and you're just feeling so satisfied that the job is well done that the final product is called beautiful. Or perhaps it's a workshop to a level of connection and trust that the work achieved more than the stated goals. And you say, wow, that was a beautiful design. Or maybe it was the moment when you painted the last wall in the living room, and you find yourself saying, oh, it's beautiful. In these examples, the feeling that was engendered was keen satisfaction or even amazement, as I noticed that in each case, an emotion was engendered. And I remembered something months earlier. I had been thinking about something entirely different when the thought arrived that beauty is emotion. Now, I could see it isn't exactly the emotion, but rather that it evokes one. And that one that it evokes has a kind of generative nature about it. It gives and enhances life. Now I was beginning to see the grandeur of this simple word that captured us and captures us, sometimes unaware. And so I was so happy when I read that H.G. Wells said one time, beauty is not in the eye of the beholder, beauty is in the heart of the beholder. Today, the emphasis is on being attractive enough to attract business to whatever we are selling, including ourselves. We call it branding. A career person thinks about their branding, from the color selection on their website, to font type, to language used, and to how they look. Today, we're going to talk about beauty. We're going to talk about branding. We're going to talk about what it means to bring your real beauty to the world. We're even going to talk about ageless beauty. We're going to take a short break so that you can think about what you're curious about and what you'd like to ask my guest if you were in my seat. So stay tuned. Well, welcome back. You're listening to Unlocked. I'm your host, Madelyn Blair. And our guest today, let me bring her on screen, is Ann Landstrom, an award-winning photographer who brings out more. Ann, welcome to Unlocked.
Thank you so much, Madeline. I love your intro talking about beauty. That is exactly what beauty is all about. Because let me just knock it out of the park. That beauty does not have a face. It's an essence.
Yeah, I love that phrase. It does not have a face. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Well, let me tell my audience about you a bit, because there's a reason you're here besides being a photographer. Ann is an award-winning photographer, as I've mentioned, with over 20 years of experience. She has been featured in Huffington Post and One Habit for Entrepreneurial Success. And Ann is about building self-confidence during hard times to empower women through helping them love their body. So again, welcome to Unlocked, Ann.
Thank you, Dr. Madeline.
All right, one of the things that makes you stand out to me is that your work is about celebrating the person within. What else makes you different as a photographer?
Well, I believe for me, I have done a lot of self-development, and I take the time to dig a little deeper than beyond the image. So when my clients call me, I always ask a lot of questions. Oh, who they are, how do they see themselves, what are their struggles, what are the struggles to find their clients in their marketing, or if they even have marketing. A lot of my clients that come in, they don't know where to start. They're women. Most of my clients are women between 40 and 65, and they're coming from corporate or from starting a new business, or they're coming from a divorce and they have to start over. They've been housewives all their lives. So it's really digging deeper into who they are as a person to be able to create their personal brand. So that's what I do.
Oh, gosh, I really appreciate that you ask lots of questions. I know when I work with a new client, not because I'm taking photographs, but because I'm helping them, you do have to understand how they see themselves, and that's
Yes.
kind of where you must begin. And then you may have some secrets for drawing out even more. For example, I often ask them to tell me stories, and it's amazing what you can learn about a person when they tell a personal story to you.
Yeah. No, for sure. And we as individuals see ourselves a lot different than other people see us.
No question. No question.
Including myself.
Well, I know I have some thoughts about myself. And when people give me, describe me back, and I go, oh my goodness, I didn't realize I was that too.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's really fun. Well, I I know we have some examples of your work, and I wonder if we might begin with branding and talk a
Sure.
little bit more about that,
Yeah.
and talk about some of your images.
I would love that.
All right, let's do that. Here we go. Here is one example. I wonder if you just talk a little bit about each one, and I think there are just a couple of them that we have here on branding.
Yeah, so this client here, she has her own vitamin and health, nutrition, and skin line. And but she's also getting into life coaching and coaching other women 50 plus. So rather than just having a picture with her sitting there, the reason I had her put her hands out like this is because later in her marketing, we can put words here. We can say, how are you? What is your struggles? Do you struggle with menopause? And so I do a lot of that in my marketing, so people, or in the images, so people can use that in their marketing later.
Oh, I never envisioned that when I do a shot. Never occurred to me that our hands could be used that way.
Yeah.
Ah, brilliant. Okay. Well, should we go to another one? By the way, I want to say this captures so much that idea of health because of the whiteness, the cleanness, the plant, all those little pieces in there. Yeah. Now, here's one that I love.
You know, it's interesting, Madelyn. I am so sorry. I told you I was working from home today, and I have a dog, and she never does this. And now, because I am on camera, she's running back and forth with a toy making noise. So if you hear anything in the background, I'm just saying that is my toddler. So,
well,
okay, sorry
for
about
that explanation. And those things happen. And, I think that's one of the things that COVID was actually a gift for us, or a gift within COVID.
It's life, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Well, speaking of life, this branding image, I just loved. I looked at it and I said, this man tells stories. Mm-hmm. I wonder if you could expand on who this is and why you chose this.
Yes, this is Joe, and interesting story that you should never judge anybody about their cover. Okay, you don't know what's behind the initial appearance with somebody. So Joe had actually hired a stylist. He is a musician, and he travels and plays he's kind of like a sophisticated hippie, so to speak. He travels all over, and he had some sort of trailer kind of car that he lived in, so he can travel and play at all these places all around the country. And but he knew he wanted to become a speaker and go speak and tell his stories. So he hired a stylist. He hired me, and we groomed him because he was a little rough around the edges. And fixed his beard, and my stylist did an amazing job, and we took his brand to a whole other level because of the visuals of where he wanted to go with himself and his brand.
I really appreciate that backstory, because as soon as I saw it, I said, this is a storyteller. I mean, I've worked with storytellers for a long time, and I do it even with corporations, but I could just see and hear that story coming out. And so your background is totally supportive of that. Yeah. Well, while we're on branding, I'm curious, what should people think about as they consider their own brand?
Well, I think these days we are so busy. We don't meet in person as much anymore. I mean, number one, before COVID, because people were just busy, and you met on Zoom or through email or through phone calls. So we don't really meet in person. So and also we don't have a lot of patience. Okay, it's like you think about your brand as a dating site. You flip left or you flip right. It's all about the appearance, because when I go to your website or somebody else's website, I'm going to look at who are you comparatively to your three competitors, and you want you because you are your brand if you're your own business, and you want your images and your copywriting to pop off the page. And it's not really about you, it's about me as a client. So what can you do? What is my pain point that you are fixing? And that's what we create with images. That's why I'm asking all these questions in the original consultation, is so I can understand, okay, and then what is your brand colors? Because you want to keep on having brand recognition. Like if you're on all different platforms, I want to make sure when I come to LinkedIn or Instagram or your Facebook or your website, oh, that's Madelyn. Yeah, because I recognize your brand colors, your images are on brand. So I hope that helps a little bit. I mean, obviously there's a lot more to it, but that's it. We go more in depth into the consultation, and then there's fonts, right? What kind of
Mm.
fonts are you using? What kind of story do you want to tell with your images? Um, so yeah,
All those things, you know, color is one thing that I'm very keen on. I was trained as an artist for many years, and so I'm very aware of color.
yeah,
And it's a real challenge if I'm sitting on this show every week. I don't want to be in the same colors, even though I know the colors of my brand.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, for example, just what just came to me right now. If you, I mean, you can wear different clothing. What if you had the same, like, made a color glasses? Like, I know that your brand, your thing, what do you call it? The graphic is an orangey brown. Well, what if you got a pair of orangey brown glasses, and that's your signature brand? So in
Ah,
all your, that's what you wear. That's kind of becomes you and your brand.
aha. Well,
Aha.
I'm going to have to think about that one, Anne, because one of the things we do in that graphics that you were talking about, which goes on social media,
Yeah.
is that we change it by season. So it's that color because this is fall, and in
So you have to
spring,
have two pairs of glasses.
I may have to just change my glasses. Oh, but that's a terrific
But
trick.
that's just an example, right? Of
Yeah.
something. I have one client, she's 80 years old, and she started something called Who I Am Makes a Difference. It's a little blue ribbon that you pin over, and please go and look at whoiammakes a difference.org. This woman are changing lives with one little blue ribbon that you pin over your heart, and you do a little 1 minute acknowledgement of that person. This blue ribbon have saved suicides, bullying. I mean, she's traveled around the world speaking at speaking next to the Dalai Lama and presidents and all that. But when I was photographing her, she has this really owl kind of glasses, like, and I said, she calls herself Grandma Sparky, and I said, Grandma Sparky, those glasses are your brand. That's like you. So now with everything that we do, it's like we always have the glasses on there because that's just her. She just wears those glasses all the time.
Oh, I'm going to have to look her up
Yeah,
and maybe
she's
get her on the.
absolutely amazing, amazing.
Maybe I can get her on the show.
Yes, she's on a mission to empower 1 billion people, and believe it or not, she is at, I think, 50 or 60 million right now.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. Wow. That's
yeah,
so that is totally awesome. But now, speaking of impact, I understand that you're going to do some more on branding because you're offering a branding, what do you call it? A brandingceo.com. There's going to be a workshop that's or
yeah.
class that you're offering.
Yeah, it's a course. It's a 6 week course, and it's launching in January. I'm doing a Black Friday pre-launch starting. Well, it's really starting now, so I will give you a code for that for your audience. But
Mhm.
what it is, what I put together is because I get a lot of out of town clients. And I also get clients that are like, "Oh, are you coming to Florida, or are you there, or I wish you were in my city."
Mm.
And so between all that and all of my clients' pain points that I hear all the time, like, I know I need pictures, but I don't know what's next. What do I do next? Or what do I do with them, or how? So I put together a course where, number one, we will talk about who is your perfect client, because some people don't even know. And if
Mhm.
you don't know who your perfect client is, how are you going to market?
Yes. Yes.
How are you going to market to that person?
Mhm.
Because you don't know who he or she is, or there might be multiple people. So eventually, if you hire a marketing team, or if you're going to run ads or anything, you got to target your audience. So we talk about a lot. That's like, we talk a lot about that. We talk about clothing, brand props, lighting. I'm going to teach I will teach how to do your own branding images. Yes, they're not going to look exactly like mine. I have 20 years in the photography business plus. I'm a professional. I'm award-winning master photographer at this point. But I know with my direction of lighting, backgrounds, cameras, I mean, you can get a pretty decent image these days with an iPhone. The camera on the iPhone has come a long way, and if you knew how to set it up correctly, how to set up lighting, or if you don't have lighting, if you have a window, you can still get great images. It's about the light, it's about the posing, it's about your expressions, it's about all of that. Which
Oh, fabulous. And you're gonna send me the coupon, and I will have that posted on my website in the replay area. So
Yes.
that if you feel like you want it, and I'm sitting here thinking, do I have time in January to do this?
Yeah, and once the first time I'm releasing the course, it will be a weekly release, and then after that, it will be like an evergreen, so you can just buy the course. But it will be Mondays, the course, or each module will be dropped, and then Thursday I will jump on a Zoom call. So any questions you have from the first module, I will personally answer those.
Okay.
And,
So, but people can get more information for themselves if they go to brandingceo.com.
Correct. Yes.
All right. Now, you do different kinds of photography, and we have some more examples, which I'd love to show our audience, because what I see in yours is that every one of them finds beauty in that person. Now, let me see. Why are you saying to remove? Okay, I know what's happening. All right. Now, here's an example of another branding one. But I brought this one up because I want to contrast that to the same person as a portrait. I wonder if you talk about that. I'll say, you tell me which image you want to have up while you're talking.
So this man here, his name is Patrick Carney. He is an international artist. He has painted the Beatles, Michael Jackson, Prince, and hand delivered the paintings to them. Wow. Yeah, please go look him up. His art is amazing, and I wanted to capture him with his art and also the essence of who he is. And I thought I love this portrait of him because it's almost like he's thinking about his creation or what he's creating next. Or I mean, there's a lot of things that we can say about this portrait. It's just not a look in the camera and smile. It gives a little bit more about what could he be thinking about.
Yeah.
And what is he doing? What is his next move? And that's what I love about photography, because you can create stories with the images.
Yeah, when I looked at this image, all I could see were wheels turning in his head. He's constantly absorbing and observing as well. Okay, here's another one, I think. Oh, now this is another portrait one, which I thought was just stunning.
Yeah. So this is also a client of mine. This is Lisa Nichols. She is a international, probably one of the top female speakers in the world, in my opinion. They call her the GOAT, greatest of all time. If you ever saw the movie The Secret, about the law of attraction and manifestation, she was one of the people in there. And she travels around the world and do a lot of she does inspirational and transformational speaking and courses, and she's absolutely amazing. If you don't know who she is, look her up on YouTube. She has her own channel. She now has married the love of her life. She waited a long time. First marriage, she's 53, 54, I think, and she moved to the Bahamas because that's where he's located, but she still comes over here, and she's just, if I've seen anybody that has a direct line to the universe, God, whoever you pray to, it is her.
Oh,
it's just downloads. I have seen her in action, and it just gives me the chills just to think about it. But she's just
and
an amazing human being. Yeah.
what is her name again?
Lisa Nichols.
Okay, fabulous. Well,
Yeah.
she
She's been on
even her,
Oprah. She's been, I mean, she's been a lot in the media and on TV shows, and yeah.
yeah. Oh, wonderful. Wow. Well, you can. I hope the audience by now is beginning to see my excitement about how you bring incredible beauty, because in every one of these images evokes something in me. It's not just, oh, okay, that's nice. No, it evokes something powerful. Yeah. Mm.
Well,
Well,
I
there's
think who one thing that I hear a lot of my clients say is, "But Ann, I hate being in front of the camera. I am not photogenic." And I say, well, I know most people would probably go to the dentist before they step in front of the camera, because why? Well, when you step in front of the camera, you have to see and like all of you. And a lot of people don't like all of them. You have all this negative self-talk in the mirror, and you beat yourself up. And I created I say to my clients, you know what? We have banned the word photogenic in my studio. In my studio, everybody is soulgenic. And whoever came up with photogenic, who created that word? Who created a photogenic? Who decided that some people looks better than others? I mean, that's just a conditioning that we have been taught,
mm,
that
it's
if
true.
you're to be 5'10" and skin like a rail, that's attractive. I mean,
Mhm.
that's just a condition that we have been taught since forever.
Yeah.
And now finally we have models in all sizes and all ages.
Yes. Yes, I've noticed that there's been a shift. At first, it was slow, but now it's quite consistent that you can see models of all
Yeah.
different, as you say, of all different sizes and
In my
shapes.
opinion, beauty has no age.
No. Now, speaking of which, I think we should talk about your work on Ageless, because
I
I
love
think
that.
it's totally
Okay.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, this is a publication you do?
Yeah, so actually, I'm sitting here with the magazine right here. So I can give you the backstory of why I did this. So 10 years ago, I came out of a really, really bad situation, abusive marriage. It was verbally and mentally abusive, and I actually ended up homeless. I have three sons, and my youngest son was 5 at the time, and the other two are older, and they were fine. But him and I were more or less couch surfing at friends' houses, and we slept in my car. I don't know how many times, because your I think when you go to trauma, your mind and it's protecting you. So a lot of times you can't remember things because of that. It shuts down just for survival mode. So I was definitely in survival mode for so many years, uh, going through all that trauma, until I decided that I need to heal myself from this and move forward. So eventually I did get a job. I find a job on Craigslist, as a matter of fact. As I was a photographer, I looked for photography jobs, and there was a boudoir, and boudoir is being photographed in your lingerie studio where I live, that was looking for photographers, and I applied for the job, and I got it. And they said, well, to work here, you actually have to have your own boudoir session first. And I'm like, yeah. Does that mean that I have to be seen and photographed in my lingerie, in my underwear? As you can imagine, the last thing coming out of an abusive marriage was feeling sexy and feeling and having that, which so many women. And I was in my early 50s. I mean, I just turned 60 this year. So I did not want to take my clothes off and do that, but I needed the job. I thought, this is so cheesy, but I need the money. So I did it, and it was so empowering.
Mm.
And I can't explain why exactly, but it's something happens when we have to like literally strip down and own all of you and all of me, in front of that other person that is capturing that. And it was just very empowering. And I thought, okay, this is something that I really want to do. So I got the job, and then this woman ended up having 15 studios across the country. And I was editing for 3 of them, and I was a photographer for one of them. And she said, Ann, I don't know what you're doing, but you have the highest numbers in the company. Keep on doing what you're doing. And I'm like, I don't know, what am I doing? What am I doing? And then it's like, you know what I'm doing? I'm putting the camera down, and I'm saying, Madelyn, tell me about you. What are you here? What's your struggles? What do you love about your body? What do you don't like about your body? And we laughed, we cried. Sometimes I was more of a therapist than I was a photographer, and sometimes I was more in therapy than I was a photographer. But what we did was we connected as human beings and as women, and that's when all the walls came down, and that's when I got the essence of that woman in front of my lens. So fast forward, I eventually turned my garage, because eventually I worked and I got a house. I got myself back on my feet. I created a boudoir photography studio in my garage. I photographed women on my living room table, in my kitchen floor, and I was creating. I mean, it was about the experience. Of course, it was about the images as well, but it was about the experience. And on the back end of all of this, I was also taking a lot of self-development courses for my own, just to be. I was on a mission to become the best version of myself, so I would never be in a situation that somebody could do that to me ever again without me saying, heck no. you and stand up for myself, because my self-confidence was obviously not in the right place, since he kept on abusing me mentally and verbally until I didn't know who I was anymore. So I opened my studio in 2017, and I when I was photographing women in boudoir, I heard and saw their struggles in confidence and in self-esteem. And when we get seasoned, like we are, in our 50s, 60s, 70s, and this woman is 90, we have some backstories.
Mhm.
And some of those stories we have been dragging around for a long time and not feeling good about ourselves. So in this project, I decided I'm going to photograph women over 40, and in lingerie, because I knew how powerful that was for loving, because it's all about self-love. It's all about owning yourself, no matter what size, what age, and what you've been through. And I when I first started running ads, I was just flooded. I thought, who's gonna want to? This is gonna be maybe a few women that was gonna come forward and do this. I was flooded with phone calls and emails for this project, and so I ended up photographing in this magazine. I photographed, I believe there is 52 women that actually did the whole project that I photographed, and they also had to write a love letter to themselves. And believe me, that's harder than you think. You sit down and start writing a love letter. It's easy to write to somebody else, but once you write it to yourself, that's a whole different ball game. So, some women wrote really long ones. Some wrote just a couple paragraphs, and then there's some women that are there is the images of them in here. But this woman here on the cover is her name. She calls herself the Pink Lady. She's she just turned 90 this year. She is a little bit of a public figure celebrity in Los Angeles. She has her own TV show or cable show there, and she does a lot in the community for, I think, veterans. And she's let's put it this way, she's 4'7", and she is very, very active. I don't think I could keep up with her. She trademarked her name 40 years ago as the Pink Lady, and she has never wore another color since.
Wow. I think there's another picture of her there.
Yeah, yeah.
Photo.
So I came to her house in Los Angeles and I photographed her. So here she's wearing like this pink 90 gown, and she's very sparkle. I mean, she loves dressing up, as you can see, and her hair is pink, and everything is pink in her house, even down to the vacuum cleaner.
My goodness. And I
Yeah.
think we have a couple more, just so that people understand. This is amazing. And here we see the contrast of the person without your treatment, I'll say, and how you photograph them.
Yeah, it is. What we do with this is I show women the best version of themselves, which a lot of us can't see. And so yes, we'll do hair and makeup. I have a great hair and makeup artist, so they will have the hair and makeup. And as you see here, she's wearing a sweater, right? But it's still a sensual image
Mm-hmm.
because of the expression and the pose. So it's
Yes.
not about like looking like really sexy or that like it's all hanging out, so to speak.
Right.
And it's about tapping into your feminine essence, which I believe is our superpower.
Okay, well, let's go to the next one, which is also an awesome image.
Yeah, and this is Bettina, and she told me that this whole experience completely changed her life. It's she fell in love with who she was after this, which was not when she walked in. And for me, kind of being the midwife into helping women with this, I know that what I went through those years, 10 years when I was married to this man that made me, abused me mentally and verbally until I felt like nothing. I knew that this was the end result of why that happened, because that it just made me so much more passionate about gifting women the gift of self-love.
Excellent. This has just been totally awesome in terms of what you have brought to all of us to imagine. And I wanted to make one other comment. You talk about self-love, and sometimes people think that that's narcissistic or it's not a good thing. And yet love always begins with acceptance. And I think just learning to accept who this body is an enormous step for some people to take.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's think about it like when you're on the airplane. They say put the mask on first before you help somebody else. It's nothing different with self-love. How do you love somebody else if you don't love yourself first? So it's not a narcissistic thing. And I didn't love myself for a very long time. And actually, Lisa Nichols, who I shot the portrait of that I was telling you about, she said, start with mirror works. And I'm like, what's that? You go in the mirror every day and you say, I love you. I see you. I forgive you.
Yeah.
And trust me, it's pretty powerful. And
it's powerful.
There will be some tears and breakdowns until you can actually look at yourself and say that and own it.
You know, that reminds me of, and it's not going to sound like it's directly related, but it is. When you describe the mirror work, I remember one time I was an executive in a company, and I took some actions as that person that was completely counter to what the other managers were doing. And they all said, how can you do that, Madelyn? And my comment was, because I have to look myself in the mirror every morning. Yeah. And that's what occurred to me as you were saying that the mirror really is a powerful agent in our lives if we make it that way. We can make it that way.
It's about your own inner integrity.
Yeah, exactly.
It's holding yourself accountable to being who you are or your fullest potential.
Wow. Well, I think you've given us a lot of things to think about, but let me just push it a little bit more. We all like to present ourselves the best way possible. And how would you advise those watching to do this for themselves? Whether they're in the process of developing their brand or maybe even as a teenager. Oh my goodness. I wish we could help teenagers more on this, because it's a time of life when you don't know who you are, and yet you're trying to develop who you are. Or maybe you're even in the process, as you say, later in life, you're 50 and you're ready to pivot. What are some things that we can do ourselves to begin to develop that self-love, I think, that you're talking about?
Well, I think to become successful, it's an inside job. So it has to start with you. You have to be able to like in my business, for example, I did not become successful until I had done the work on myself, where I could, like, I would feel like a fraud if I sat there and photographed women and told them all of this, and but if I didn't feel that myself, but trust me, I just did and I'm not a big self-portrait kind of photographer. A lot of photographers do self-portraits all the time. And I haven't been one of them until just last weekend. I set up, I had a photo shoot and I had my back dress up and I'm like, okay, I'm going to, nothing to do. Saturday night, I'm by myself with my dog in the studio, and I set it up with my timer. And I started like with clothes on, down photograph till I was just in my underwear. And I saw those pictures, and the first thing I did was criticize myself, right? And I looked at just like everybody else, like, oh my God, look at that stomach hanging over the pants, the panties, whatever. And then I'm like, Ann, you know what? You're 60 years old. You've had 3 children. You have gone through all this stuff. You are not going to look, and everybody, you are not ever going to be 25 again when you're 50 or 60. You're just not. We need to accept who we are today, because beating yourself up constantly, we can't change it. We can't go to Nordstrom's and say, hey, can I exchange myself into a 25 year younger version of me? It just doesn't work that way. So I think self-love, no matter, you just have to love yourself. Yeah, you might not be happy with, I mean, I don't know, anybody that's super happy about getting older or aging. It's but that's life.
Yeah.
So we just have to accept that, and to help that acceptance. Yeah, if you need to go and buy some sexy lingerie, even if you're single, or you just do it for yourself, because when you feel good, you look good, and when you look good, you feel good. It just goes together. Yeah. Yes. And even when I was homeless, nobody knew, because I was the best dressed homeless person out there. I had my suitcase in the back of the car. I always made sure I looked good. I was a professional hider. Nobody knew. And there's so many of us that we don't know what the backstory is, because we carry that guilt and shame that people are going to judge us for whatever we've been through or going through. And I find the best thing you can do is talk about your story. Once I got my story out, and it was like, it was such a relief. Like, now I can be all of me, vulnerable, and it's okay.
Yeah. Ann, as you say that, it really reminds me, one of the very first practices I say in my book of Unlocked is that you write stories about yourself, your stories from your life, and from any time, like 5 minutes ago or from when you were 5. It doesn't matter. It's those times when you really begin to understand who you are and what made you, what formed you.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that so much. And this has been an awesome conversation.
Yeah, I
must say it has taken me all kinds of paths, which I really appreciate. Really appreciate.
Yeah, I can give one tip for like self-love, or 2. Actually, if you go in the mirror and do the mirror talk every day, but then also pick up your phone, take a picture, And in some cases, it might be 40 before there's one that you like of yourself. And then compliment yourself. Say, Ann, I really like how your eyes look today, or you got a nice smile. Or if you really have a hard time, because it's really hard sometimes to compliment our own self. We can compliment other people all day long, but it's really hard to do it to ourselves. But when I start doing it, my photography mentor, she was teaching this, and when I start doing it, I actually put together a selfie love Facebook group, and I invited all my friends, and I said, okay, we're going to do this every Tuesday, and we're going to post it in the group, and then we're going to post what we said about ourselves. And some women couldn't even post their face; they posted their boots. Okay, so it took a while for women to open up and be able to do that, but it really works. Once you're in that process, it does work.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Ann, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate your time and you sharing such wisdom with us. I'm very much appreciative of that, and I loved the word soulgenic. That's one I'm going to start using. So again, thank you for your time and your generosity. You were so generous. Again, my appreciation to you.
Thank you for having me, Madelyn. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. What a wonderful, wonderful conversation. You know, so many things that I've learned today. But I'm thinking, you know, resilience actually has its roots in self-confidence. And knowing who we are is essential to building resilience because it helps us call on everything we have when life asks us for more. It's one of the first things my practices work on. Your appearance is part of who you are. It's not the whole picture, but still a part. So based on what I have learned today, I think that just knowing more about what you bring to the world from your inside gets reflected on the outside as well. I mean, I can just imagine Ann pulling that out, not to pull the words out, but to help you see it and recognize it yourself. And when we focus on our true self and what we bring to the world, we root ourselves and we become more resilient. Take a moment today and remind yourself of the gifts you uniquely bring to the world. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Unlocked. If you have, make a comment in social media about what you learned and might do differently as a result. And if you're on YouTube or LinkedIn, click the like button. Better yet, subscribe or follow me. Check out my book, Unlocked, for practices that actually work. If you would like to explore what it means for yourself to build and nurture your resilience, send me an email to madelyn@madelynblair.com and I'll get right back to you. And if you would like to join a group mentoring session, again, write and tell me that. I'll keep you informed when the next group mentoring session is scheduled. And I want to thank you again for joining us on this segment of Unlocked. I'm Madelyn Blair, wishing you infinite possibilities as you unlock your resilience.